Thanks very much, Carol. Can I echo Carol's sentiments there? We were driving up from Glasgow, and I've got to say it's a hell of a night, and I thought, God, there'll be nobody here, but you've confounded their expectations, so thanks very much for taking the effort and the time to come out, particularly as it's so near the festive period and everybody's thinking about getting a wee rest and letting themselves recharge their batteries, because those of us that are involved in the independence movement, we've had a very, very packed year, and I hope, and we'll come on to this, I hope that we are getting ready for what is going to be a momentous 2020. So yes, we need to recharge the batteries, but unfortunately sometimes you can't pick your battles. Sometimes people pick the battles for you and you've got to fight them. And right now there is an enormous battle underway, and it's a battle that we've got to stand up and be counted in. I want to address my opening remarks and a lot of my contribution to the argument that I hear within the Yes movement, particularly some of those who are not in the SNP, those in the Yes movement who are progressive, some of them socialist, some of them got no political label at all, but they are left of centre. They believe in society, they believe in collective provision, they believe in sometimes collective ownership as well. And there is a bit of a debate going on about a general election that's taking place just now and the emergence of a party under Jeremy Corbyn which is different to the party that was in existence in 2014 at the time of the last referendum. Different in that, quite clearly, uncategorically, that party under Ed Miliband suited the appropriate terminology of red Tories. They, in their manifesto, in their political outlook, if you looked at the votes in relation to the welfare cuts, where they either voted against stopping the welfare cuts or they abstained in these votes. If you look at the position on the economy, you look at the position on taxing the wealthy, you looked at the position on renationalisation, they were the red Tories. And the fact that they then aligned themselves with the blue Tories and the yellow Tories in the course of the 2014 referendum utterly defined them for a generation, utterly defined them. It's quite clear in my opinion that many working class households simply will not forgive Labour for what they did in 2014. You can argue all you want, quite rightly, about what Blair did before then, and what he did in relation to Iraq and the lies that he told, the most putrid lies, the worst lies you can ever tell, because when you commit a country to a war, then you are willing to sacrifice the lives of young working class men and women in the armed forces, and he did that on the basis of a pack of lies, on the basis of a false prospectus. I remember listening to one of his speeches where he talked about sweating blood and tears to fight against Saddam Hussein, and I remember at the time thinking, no, you're not sweating blood and tears, you're sweating other people's blood and tears, because he never shed any blood, and he certainly never shed any tears about the hundreds of servicemen and women whose lives were either lost or ruined, and the million people in Iraq whose lives were unnecessarily terminated on the basis of a war for oil, not a war for democracy, not a war for human rights. Saddam Hussein, let's remember, was our man in the Middle East for many years. You know, when people talked about him having weapons of mass destruction, and everybody was saying, oh, the weapons inspectors can't find them. Anybody with any sense said, well, just look up the receipt book. We sold them. If he's got any, we'll know about it, because it was Britain that sold them weapons of mass destruction. And of course, the weapons inspectors weren't able to find any because they'd been destroyed, and we were sold that lie, weren't we? 20 minutes, they'll be 20 minutes, they'll be able to attack us within 20 minutes. And that war was based on those falsehoods. So Blair already undermined the Labour Party. We had the likes of Miliband come in and didn't improve things. Working class communities like the whole of Fife, which you used to count the Labour vote, used to weigh the Labour vote and now count it, because it was so solid working class, ex-mining communities by and large, working class people who recognised that they supported a working class party, because that's what the Labour Party was supposed to be. And I reckon what happened in 2014 was people were absolutely appalled when they saw the way the Tories, the Liberals and the Labour Party joined together in the waving of the Union Jack and support the Union, forget about the poverty, forget about the low wages, forget about the nuclear weapons. We need to join together to defend the Union. And they told a pack of lies. A pack of lies. Pensioners were getting told that they'll lose their pensions if you go for independence. Shipyard workers were getting told you'll lose your jobs if you go for independence. Go and tell that to the shipyard workers now who have already lost their jobs and never went for independence. Yeah. And of course, people were told the only way to stay in Europe is by rejecting independence. People like me, I remember coming here to Kelty with a packed meeting, fantastic meeting, and I'm sure we'll have other meetings just like that, hopefully next year. But I remember making the point that the independence campaign wasn't like the Brexit campaign, because unlike Brexit, there had been a lot of work done prior to the referendum to explain what independence would look like, to explain what would happen next. None of that was done in relation to Brexit. The white paper that was produced by the Scottish Government, by the SNP in power, was a blueprint about how they saw independence developing. And I was absolutely clear in my speeches, and others were as well, that we were supporting yes, 100%. But it didn't mean that we supported the white paper. The white paper, for instance, talked about staying in Europe, and I've got to say, I'm no fan of the European Union. I think the European Union is very undemocratic. I think it is there in existence to promote big business. It promotes privatisation. It promotes the rights of the corporations across Europe, and it will impose austerity on member countries if they don't toe the line. Go and ask the Greeks, go and ask Portugal, go and ask the Irish. Look at the silence, the absolute damning silence in relation to what's happening in Catalonia today from the European Union. A European Union that's willing to come out and endorse an idiot, Juan Guaido from Venezuela, that's been installed by America as a replacement president for the elected President Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. European Union's willing to say, oh, well, we recognise that guy. Recognise him? Why would you recognise him? He never stood for president. But you're willing to recognise this idiot because America told you to do it. But when you've got Madrid troopers sent in to break the skulls of people in Catalonia whose only crime is to vote for independence, not a word of condemnation from the European Union. Why? Because they're there to represent the status quo. They're there to represent the existing establishments. They don't want to rock any boats. And therefore the idea that the European Union is something that's full of milk and honey is not my prospectus. However, this is the important point. That's not vital. That's not necessary to work out before our independence. Right. My position, and I think the position of many within the Yes movement, is yes, we will vote for independence even if it means we go independent and are members of the European Union, because in a future independent Scotland, people like me and many others can campaign to leave the European Union, to have a Norway-like existence, so that we're not members of the European Union, but we still have trading links with the European Union. That's the type of relationship I would like. I do not want, as the Italian government faced just 6 months ago, when they had a coalition government that had fought the election on quite progressive. I mean, it was interesting because a lot of them were right-wing, but there was some left-wing populists that brought into a coalition government in Italy. And some of the prospectus that they fought the election on was lowering the retirement age. Lowering the retirement age. We're talking about increasing it to 75. In Italy, they talk about lowering the retirement age. Introducing a universal citizen's income across Italy. That was the policies they fought. So once the election was over, they sat down and they formulated their budgets. And the European Union said, oh, no, you can't do that. We believe you will be more than 3% extra debt per GDP. So we're not allowing you to have this in your budget. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, that's what they did in Ireland, that's what they did in Portugal, that's what they did in Greece. How dare anyone who's not elected in your country turn around and tell you what policies you can implement in your country? If we have got an election in Scotland and we want, for instance, to take over the shipyards, to take over the steel yards, to have an integrated economic policy so that we actually have publicly owned industry, I'm not going to have the European Union turn around and say, I'm very, very sorry, but under our competition rules, I'm afraid you're not allowed to have a publicly owned steel industry and a publicly owned shipyard. I'm sorry, I'm not willing to accept that. However, what I'm willing to accept is we fight that battle at a future date. The first battle that needs to be fought is the battle for independence. Similarly, the White Paper talked about us using the currency of sterling. And again, I've got to say to you, brothers and sisters, in an independent Scotland, I want a National Bank of Scotland. I want a National Bank of Scotland that provides the income for the house building programmes, for the energy programmes, for the new wind, wave and solar projects that are going to make Scotland the clean energy producer of the whole of Europe. How are we going to pay for all of that if we don't have the ability to generate our own finance? We need a national bank that can provide the finance, that builds the houses, that eradicates homelessness forever, that builds the projects, that allow us to move away from fossil fuel reliance. We cannot have an independent Scotland dependent on the Bank of England. That's just not on. So in the White Paper, when they were talking about using the sterling, I said, no, I'm not for that. But it didn't stop its campaign for independence. Again, it's another question we can deal with once we've voted for our independence. There was another issue I remember which in the White Paper which I didn't agree with. This whole idea of the attitude to the monarchy. The idea that, well, in an independent Scotland, we'll have a slimmed down monarchy. They won't have the same responsibilities. And I thought, well, wait a minute, I'm not interested in buying any diet products for the monarchy. We already give them enough. I don't want a slimmed down monarchy. I just don't want anybody who's not elected to have any authority over our lives and any decisions that we make. So again, it's a difference with a White Paper. But you see, those differences weren't big enough to stop us campaigning collectively for independence. And similarly next year, whatever, I've looked at this Growth Commission paper and I'm not happy with it. Right? The Growth Commission paper that's been promoted by wee Andrew Wilson, who has a banking background, and I can tell that by reading the Growth Commission paper, because it's all about balancing books, it's all about making sure that the finances all meet up. I'm not interested. We're not a household. Get away from this crap that you get people argue. Because Thatcher brought it in, didn't she? We have to balance the budget because it's just like a house. You need to make sure that there's enough coming in so that you can spend what's going out. We are not a house. There's no house in this country that can print its own money. You don't govern yourself on those rules. What you do as a country is you make damn sure that you deal with the priorities of decent employment, the priorities of making sure we don't have people relying on food banks, the priorities of making sure that we don't have people sleeping in streets like the nights that we've got tonight. That's the priorities. And by the way, see, if we go overboard in terms of our borrowing to make that happen, then so be it. You see, here's the point. Here's the point that we should always make when you hear people talking about, oh, you know, independent Scotland, you know, you'll have a deficit. Don't you know that you'll have a deficit? Right now, in our UK, we have 14 million people that are officially in poverty. 5 million of them are children. We have hundreds of thousands every single week relying on food banks. We have homelessness increased by 80%. We have the largest single growth in poverty is among the working poor. Those that have got jobs, whose wages are too low to pay their rent and their fuel bills. We've got all of that, and we've got a deficit of £1.2 trillion. I want a deficit where we can turn around and say, aye, we've got a deficit, but it's because we don't have any homelessness, we don't have any poverty, we don't have anybody living in a poor wage. We in an independent Scotland, we've got to be aspirational. I don't want independent Scotland and nothing changes. What's the use of fighting for an independent Scotland and all you do is change the flag that flies above the municipal buildings? I don't want to change just the flag. I want to change people's lives. I want to look at the oxymoron of the working poor. Working poor. How the hell can we accept language like that? If you're working, why the hell are you poor? We should be saying there is a living wage for every single person in employment. See, if you were to pay people decent wages, see your Asdas and your Morrisons and your Aldis and your Lidls of the world, we subsidise them. Why do we subsidise them? Because we allow them to pay wages that are too low for people to live on, but then we encourage those people to apply for benefits. And we give them credits for housing benefit, credits for universal credit, working families tax credit, rolling it all into one. Why the hell do we subsidise corporations that are making billions of pounds of profit? What we should be doing is forcing those companies to pay decent wages in an independent Scotland. We should have the aspiration that nobody ever talks about the working poor in the future because it's a non-existent fact. It's like Martin Luther King used to say that he hoped to live long enough, unfortunately he didn't, to live in a society where the children say, what was racism? Well, we should have that type of aspiration, brothers and sisters. We should have the aspiration to say that we hope to build a new Scotland where the children say, what was poverty? What was nuclear weapons? What was bigotry? What was racism? These are the types of things that we want to eradicate in our new independent Scotland. And see, if we don't want to do that, then I've got to say, it's not the same journey I'm on. Because I don't want independence to then put my feet up. I want independence to then start the journey. Independence is not the end of the journey. Independence is the start of the journey. It's the start of the journey to transform Scotland into a country that we can all be proud to raise our children in, proud to welcome people from other parts of the world that want to come here and live and work. We should have the attitude that being Scottish is not determined by where you were born, it's determined by where you live. And if you live in Scotland, then you're Scottish. That's the type of attitude we should have to those that want to come and live and work in our new independent Scotland. And from my point of view, all of these points mean that on December the 12th, we've got a big choice to make. And some people are saying to me, contacting me on social media, Tommy, I don't know what to do with my vote. Corbyn's different from Miliband. And he is. Absolutely is. I remember meeting Jeremy 30 years ago when I went down to Westminster some of you in here will have been involved in the campaign. I went down to Westminster as the chairman of the Scottish Anti-Poll Tax Federation. And I went down there because we had it in 1989. You'll remember this, we got it the year before then. That was Mrs Thatcher's present to us for refusing to vote for her. She stuffed us with a poll tax a year early. And I went down to meet with a campaign group of Labour MPs. That was the sort of a left-wing group of Labour MPs. And Jeremy Corbyn and Dennis Skinner and Tony Benn, Dave Nellis, Terry Fields, lots of good left-wingers, good socialists. And they all came to a meeting and they listened to the campaign for mass non-payment. My task was to ask them to endorse mass non-payment and to build it in England in 1990 because they were getting it from March 31st, 1990. And I met Jeremy then, and he was very friendly, very helpful, and he endorsed and supported the mass non-payment campaign. And I've got to say, over the last 30 years, in 9 out of 10 issues, I've been on the same side of the argument as Jeremy Corbyn has. And quite frankly, I think Jeremy Corbyn has been on the right side of those arguments in the last 30 years. Whether it's apartheid, whether it's wars, whether it's nuclear weapons. But here's the rub. Jeremy, I think, has got 2 problems. One's a prisoner problem and the other's a blind spot. The blind spot he's got is in relation to Scottish independence. He's a good guy. He supports a united Ireland. He supports an independent Cuba. He supports an independent Palestine. He supports an independent Venezuela. I support all of those things. I support all of those things. What Jeremy doesn't support is an independent Scotland. He thinks that Britain is a nation. Britain isn't a nation. Britain's a collection of nations. And we have the right to determine our own future. We have the right to be an independent country again. Jeremy, unfortunately, got a blind spot in that. What I would say to him is, I'm not even asking him that he has to change his mind. I'd like him to listen. But the one thing that I cannot accept, I can accept him not supporting independence. Some people have got a British road to socialism idea. I think they're wrong, but they're entitled to their opinion. What he's not entitled to do is not entitled to tell us when and where we can hold our own referendums on our future. He's not entitled to do that. The other prisoner point he has is in relation to nuclear weapons. Jeremy Corbyn abhors nuclear weapons. Jeremy Corbyn's been a member of CND all of his adult life. But Jeremy Corbyn's manifesto at this election endorses renewing Trident. That's because he's a prisoner of his own party. Because too many of them think, oh no, you can't say we're going to get rid of Trident. The media will roast us, and the trade union barons are saying, oh, there's lots of jobs. Lots of jobs, my arse. You're lucky if there's 500 jobs relying in relation to Trident. Go and read the STUC diversification project. Go and look at the report. The number of direct jobs that Trident maintains is about 500. The rest of the jobs are all jobs that will be there on support, whether you've got Trident or not. 500 jobs. I'm not willing to put my wee Wayne's life in danger by having nuclear weapons less than 25 miles from where I stay just for 500 jobs. Absolutely not. They're immoral, they're internationally illegal, and we should scrap them. That's what we should do, and Scotland has to show a lead on this. I am so pleased to have read Nicola talk the other day where she said there was 2 red lines in relation to any support and supply arrangements after the election. Not just the right to call Indy Ref 2 next year, but also disposing of nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
At the very least, I want them disposed of completely. That's the main objective. But see if we can't get them disposed of immediately, if we can't get unilateral nuclear disarmament, at the very least, let's say to all the enthusiasts in London, okay, keys up, You don't want to have unilateral nuclear disarmament. You have them in the Thames. You can have them, we'll park them outside Westminster. That's what they should be, if you're so keen on them. On the basis, therefore, of this election and all of the programmes, I am enthusiastic on my social media accounts, when I speak to my friends in England and Wales. Apart from the 4 seats, Wales has 40 seats. Wales has 40 seats. 4 of them are Plaid Cymru seats. And in those seats, I would argue people should vote Plaid Cymru. But in the 36 other seats where Plaid Cymru is not anywhere near winning those seats, I would argue vote Labour. In England, I would argue vote Labour. Because I think it is in Scotland's interests to have a progressive government next door to us. I think it's in our interests to have a government that believes in redistribution of wealth, that believes in public ownership, that believes in fairness, and undoubtedly Corbyn does. But when people say to me, but what about Scotland, Tommy? You're a socialist. Surely you should vote for the Socialist Party. I've got to say to you, brothers and sisters, I don't think independence is just for Christmas. I don't think independence is just a pet project. I don't think you support independence one day and then the next time you decide, oh well, I'm not so sure about it now. You're either for independence or you're not. It's a principle as far as I'm concerned. We have the right to self-determine. We have the right to be an independent nation. I draw my inspiration and my political ideology for the likes of John McLean, one of the greatest socialists that Scotland ever produced. John McLean, who opposed the First World War and was punished for opposing that imperialist absolute disaster that led to the loss of hundreds of thousands, millions of innocent lives for nothing. John McLean was in prison 5 times in his life, for sedition the last 3 times, sentenced to hard labour in Peterhead. John McLean went and took his message, his socialist message, to the streets of Glasgow and all across Scotland. He came and visited the Fife mining areas. He spoke all across Ayrshire. He spoke all across Lanarkshire. He was imprisoned for being a socialist and for being against the First World War. John McLean was an internationalist to his soul. He believed in internationalism. He was a socialist, but he also believed in an independent Scotland. To be more precise, to use John McLean's leaflet from 1923, just prior to his death, when he stood in the Gorbals, and his leaflet pronounced, "All hail the Scottish Workers' Republic." That was the John McLean line, the socialist, who many other socialists have drawn inspiration for years and years. Unfortunately, John died in November 1923, died very early, only 48 years of age, died of the deprivations that he suffered during his 5 times in imprisonment and the tampering of his food that took place. That's now a documented fact. But McLean stood for an independent Scotland because he saw that Scotland had been a nation and had the right to become a nation yet again.
Yes.
That's why, as a socialist, a blood-red socialist, I say to everyone in Scotland, vote for SNP on December 12th, because breaking the British state is a priority for every socialist. The British state is absolutely dripping in the blood of millions of ordinary working class people who have been exploited, who have been tortured, who have been enslaved. The British state was built on robbery and rape and pillaging. We've got the chance to break it. Not by using arms and bullets, but by using a wee bloody pencil. A non-violent revolution. Because that's what independence is to me. It's a revolution. because it's breaking the most unfair, the most powerful, and the most deceitful state and empire that ever existed. That's what the British state represents. So when it comes to an election, I say to other socialists who say to me, oh, but Tommy, you're voting for SNP, you're voting for a nationalist party, you should be voting for a socialist party. I've got to say that I would caution socialists from going down that line. By all means, they can argue their point about Jeremy's programme, manifesto, love it, very impressed by it, very pleased by it. But don't go down the line and try to tell me I'm a nationalist because I'm voting SNP, but you're a socialist because you're voting Labour. Because the truth is, if voting SNP makes you a Scottish nationalist, then voting Labour must make you a British nationalist. Because when you're voting for Labour, you're voting to maintain the British Union. That means you are a British nationalist. So don't give me that argument. It's a very weak argument, and it's a very empty argument. If the SNP, let's be clear about this, if the SNP was supporting independence, and that's all they had to offer, I think there would be a bigger argument about, oh well, is it enough? Is it enough to say that you're going to vote for them? If the SNP was a right-wing party that said, vote for us, we're going to have independence, but by the way, in the process, we're going to have austerity, we are going to privatise our health service, we're not going to lift a finger to tackle homelessness, we don't care about low wages, and see all the asylum seekers, we don't want them in our country, we're going to put up barriers. If that was the nature of the SNP, you would have a legitimate case to say, as a socialist and a progressive, you shouldn't be endorsing the SNP. But that is not the reality. The reality is the SNP is a left-of-centre progressive political party. There is no doubt about that. Absolutely none. I would argue they have become more left-of-centre in recent years because of the pressure of the independence movement. Let's face it, the 100,000 people that joined the SNP after 2014 weren't middle-class right-wingers. They were working class from the housing estates of Scotland who were determined to continue the fight for independence. They've joined the SNP and they've pushed them further to the left. Yeah, that's the SNP conference. I heard them talking about the need to develop a national energy company. I talked about them discussing the need for a national bank. I heard them talking about the need to look at a bill which would protect the health service in perpetuity, to never have it privatised. I talked about them having bills put in place that would make it a legal right for anyone to join a trade union when they were in employment. That's not the policies of a middle of the road or right of centre political party. Those are the policies of a left of centre party. And that's why, even as a member of a different party, I'm a member of Solidarity, I'm the convener of a socialist party, a smaller socialist party than the SNP. But as the convener of Solidarity, I am comfortable, absolutely comfortable, in calling on the people of Scotland and our members to vote SNP on December 12th, because the single biggest progressive message that the Tories will get is if Scotland send an army of SNP MPs to Westminster with three things on their mind. Number one, independence. Number two, getting rid of nuclear weapons. And number three, been willing to support a Corbyn government as long as they deliver in the first two. Those are the things that make voting SNP progressive for all socialists, as far as I am concerned. So the argument tonight, brothers and sisters, about what do you do in a few weeks' time, as far as December 12th, if you're a socialist, I think if you're a socialist who believes in independence, and I find it difficult nowadays in Scotland to be a socialist that doesn't believe in independence, but if you're a socialist that believes in independence, I think your duty is to vote SNP. And by the way, there'll be some areas, this happens all the time, there'll be some areas of Scotland where if you looked at candidates, you might not be happy with the particular candidate you've got. Sometimes you need to hold your nose and vote for some people because you don't particularly like them personally. But you're voting politically. This isn't a personal vote, it's a political vote. And I think people should be prepared to back the SNP on December 12th. Here's my finishing point, however. Solidarity is a political party, the party that I'm a member of. We had a big argument in 2015 about this. Because after the referendum, many people were saying, you guys, you should stand in the general election of 2015. Many of you have been speaking in meetings. I had the privilege to speak at over 130 meetings all over Scotland. People are saying, Tommy, you've got a good profile, you've spoken at all these meetings, you should stand at the general election. And I say, well, we could stand at the general election, and some seats we would maybe get 500 or 600, other seats we maybe even get a few thousand, no doubt about it. Don't think we would win any seats, but we might take a few thousand votes in a lot of seats. But what we would do is we would weaken the yes vote. Because we would take a few thousand votes for people who would otherwise vote for a yes supporting party. And that's why in 2015 we debated it, we discussed it, and we agreed that we would withdraw from the general election and call on people to vote SNP. Unite the yes movement. That's what was most important. And some people disagreed with us. But we actually had walkouts from our party. That's what happens. You know, sometimes I'm not falling out with the individuals, long-term socialists, and when it comes to the barricades, I'm quite confident I'll be on the same side as the barricades with them. But when it comes to tactics and strategy, sometimes you've got disagreements with people. People were saying, oh, you're supposed to be a socialist, how can you support a nationalist party? And I said, because you need to put the interests of the movement first. As a socialist, I think you've always got to put the interest of the working class first and foremost. What is in the best interest of the working class? And in the best interest of the working class here in Scotland is the break-up of the British Union. That's the best interest of the working class. And that's why you support the Yes Party. SNP is the big Yes Party. I've got to say that I was angry in 2015 with the Greens, because the Greens didn't listen to this strategy and they stood in Dumfries and Galloway and they took more votes than David Mundell's majority. Now if the Greens had called on their supporters to back the SNP, we could have got rid of the Tories completely. Instead of having Mundell elected. Okay, we get 56, we should have had 57. Now, 2017 we did the same thing, 2019 we're doing the same thing. And now I'm even more angry with the Greens. I'm now even more angry with the Greens, and I respect they've got the right as a political party, they're represented in the Parliament, all of that. They've got the right to determine their own tactics. But don't tell me that you support maximum unity of the Yes movement and stand 22 candidates at this election. 22 candidates. Candidates standing. By the way, the majority of them never stood before. This isn't even an argument of consistency. Sometimes you could hear people say, oh no, that's no fair, you telling us to stand down. We stood the last time. They didn't. The majority of the seats, go and check it. They didn't stand the last time. Including in crucial seats like Edinburgh, with John Cherry standing, where the Greens never stood in 2017, but they stood in 2015, and in 2015 they took more votes than Joanne Cherry's got as a majority, and then they're standing in 2019. Somebody who is a very articulate, very capable proponent of the Yes movement is now put in danger because the Greens could siphon off some of the yes vote, because, by the way, let's be clear about this. You know it and I know it. The Unionists in this election will draw their votes together. They'll be telling the Unionists in each seat, oh, don't bother voting Labour, vote Tory. Don't bother voting Tory, vote Labour. Don't bother voting Tory, vote Liberal. They'll be putting the Unionists together in order to try and undermine the yes supporting party. That's what they'll do. And I believe the Greens should not be self-indulgent, should not be putting the party before the movement. They should be putting the movement first and saying, we're calling on our supporters at this general election to back the SNP. That's what the Greens should be doing, brothers and sisters. They should be prepared to be big enough to recognise that the movement is above any individual party or any individual. The movement is what counts. Now, when it comes to 2021, absolutely. Fill your boots, go and fight all the seats you want, that's up to you. But in an election where there's only one vote, it's precious. You should not be dividing the yes vote, as far as I'm concerned. I want, however, a quid pro quo for all of this. We have said here we want to put the movement first. I think that's the right thing to do. But what do we get back for it? I believe the SNP owes a duty to the movement not to renege on the promise of a 2020 referendum. I've heard some voices. I read some of their articles online. Some of the SNP politicians who talk about A, it's too early, and B, let's get a new mandate in 2021. Let's wait to the 2021 elections. Brothers and sisters, I think that will be political betrayal. Yeah. Political betrayal. Definitely. If the SNP do not announce, and by the way, I'm not talking about seeking permission. I don't believe we should go cap in hand to the Westminster corrupt establishment and say, please can we have what is ours by right? Yes. Every single international law recognises the right of small nations to self-determine. We do not ask cap in hand for the right to hold a referendum. We tell Westminster, we're holding the referendum. We've got the mandate. We've got the mandate. And if the SNP in the course of next year do not stand up to the plate and carry out the wishes of the broader movement, they will have let us down. And when you let a movement down, don't be surprised if you don't get that movement's support at the next set of elections. Because see this fairy tale about let's get a new mandate in 2021. If they don't stand and fight and give us a referendum in 2020, they might just not win in 2021. Not because people will necessarily go and vote for anybody else. I'm not saying that'll happen. But here's the warning. Here's the warning. 2015, 56 seats out of 59. 2017, 35 seats. SNP's vote fell by just under 500,000. 500,000. That wasn't the people that went and voted Tory or voted Labour. Because Labour's vote increased by 10,000. That's all, it increased by 10,000 between 15 and 17. That was people who didn't bother to vote. Right. That was the lower turnout between 15 and 17. That was the disillusionment. We sent you down there. We thought you were going to take it by storm. We thought we were going to get a next independence referendum. 17 comes along. People weren't as fired up. People weren't as clear about what the SNP was fighting for. In fact, if you remember that 17 election, I'm glad the SNP haven't made the same mistake now. But in that 17 election, they mentioned everything but independence. It was like fighting in a boxing ring with one hand behind your back. This time around, they're making it the absolute forefront of their campaign.
Yeah.
I think they're going to get rewarded for that. I think there's going to be a renewed number of SNP MPs. I think we could be into 40s, maybe even 50s. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But if they get that, and then don't give us a referendum next year, you can forget 2021.
We'll never forget.
I'll be coming here in platforms like this, and there might not be as many people here, but I'll be damned if I'm going to be made a fool of, if I'm going to be taken for granted. If we are willing to go out on a limb to support you, you owe us that you keep your promises. That you keep your promises and you fight for the referendum in 2020. Brothers and sisters, I'm going to finish my remarks by making the point here that this election, if you were to watch Sky News, according to them, it's the Brexit election. Of course, it's in their interest to do that, isn't it? Because they're determined to make this about anything else but austerity, anything else but poverty, anything else but low wages, anything else but the failings of the NHS. They're determined to take people's eyes off the ball and to make it all about Brexit and to turn an artificial divide between Remainers and Leavers, when the divide in societies know about Remainers and Leavers. There's people in here in this room, some of you will be Leavers, some of you will be Remainers. It's not a big principle. It's not a principle. A picket line's a principle. Crossing a picket line, that's a principle. Being a racist is a principle. Being a sexist is a principle. But Remain or Leave, they're no principles. Those are individual disagreements you can have within your family, within your community. The divide in society is between class. The working class, who are the majority, and the ruling class, who are the minority. That's the biggest division. And within that, of course, I include the teachers that were born into working class backgrounds and now, according to the social registrar, because they're teachers, they're now middle class. You're working class. That's what you came for. That's your stock. That's the divide in society. This election, for us here in Scotland, is the independence election. It's the independence election because it allows our class to advance our cause of a new independent country. We have to say loud and clear, independence for us isn't about the past. Isn't it just about Bannockburn? Isn't it just about William Wallace and Robert the Bruce? These things are important, by the way. Let's not denigrate our history. Let's learn about our history and take inspiration from our history. Independence isn't about Bannockburn or Robert the Bruce. Independence is about the future. Independence is about a modern democratic republic that puts people before profit. Independence should never, ever be about individuals. Independence is about the collective nation and what we can do as a nation, as a progressive nation. I want to build an independent socialist Scotland. That's what I want. Not everybody will share that vision, but hopefully in time I can convince you of that vision. Independence should never be about fear. Fear of change. Fear of things being different. Fear about what might happen. Independence should be about hope.
Yes.
Hope for all of the things that we could do better. Hope for the ability to use our vast resources, our natural wealth, our land, our water, our seas, our oil, our gas, our ability to harness the wind and the waves and the solar power. That's all within our grasp. That's the hope that we have. That's the hope that we harness. And that's what independence is all about. Hope over fear. Thanks very much.